Good evening, this is the archive. On this day, December 16, 1884, New Orleans, Louisiana. Across the Gulf South, the holiday season was well underway. Markets were stocked, merchants competed fiercely. In Lake Charles, the Ferry Wharf moved fresh calcasieu past oysters by the bushel. Cranberries, figs, and coconuts filled the shelves at Mims and Thomas. Fireworks and Christmas candies were advertised in nearly every column of the local press. The nation was watching President-elect Grover Cleveland. He would soon control some 8,370 federal appointments. The spoil system was very much alive, so was the season. On this day, the biggest question in American politics had nothing to do with legislation. It had everything to do with jobs. Grover Cleveland had won the presidency. He would take office in March, but already the pressure was building. According to the Lake Charles commercial, Cleveland would inherit control of approximately 370 federal offices. These positions sat entirely outside civil service protection. Every single one of them was his to give away. Reform-minded Americans had celebrated Cleveland's election. They believed he was different. They believed the spoils system, the old practice of rewarding party loyalty with government appointments, was finally ending. Cleveland had promised as much, but the Democratic machine had its own expectations. Party faithful had worked hard. They wanted their reward. 8,370 positions represented enormous power: postmasters, customs collectors, land office agents, real jobs with real salaries. It was reported that Cleveland's allies were watching closely. Every appointment would be scrutinized. Every decision would be read as a signal. Would he honor the reformers or feed the machine? Louisiana Democrats had their own stake in the answer. The state party was hungry. It had been locked out of federal patronage for years. Republican administrations had controlled those offices. Now the door was open. The tension was real, and it was felt here. Readers of the Lake Charles commercial understood what Cleveland's choices would mean. A customs appointment in New Orleans was not an abstract matter. It was a neighbor's livelihood. It was local power. It was the difference between a party that governed and a party that only talked. Cleveland had not yet acted. He was watching. The reformers were watching. The machine was waiting. 8,370 offices sat quietly in the balance. On this day, the Ferry Wharf at Lake Charles was doing brisk holiday business. Fresh oysters from Calcasieu Pass were moving fast. Merchants stocked cranberries, oranges, bananas, figs, and dates. F. Chavin's Bakery advertised the finest Christmas confections in town. A. J. Perkins at West Lake Charles had received an entire carload of choice family flour and corn. According to the Lake Charles commercial, Lake Charles, Calcasieu Parish, Louisiana, the holiday retail economy was lively. Joe Eckart's store on Ryan Street drew shoppers with fine gold jewelry and toys. Chavin's advertised fireworks cheaper than the cheapest. Mims and Thomas pushed Roman candles, firecrackers, and toy pistols. It was a small town competing loudly for every dollar, but not every storefront was selling celebration. W.A. Knapp's drugstore was selling something else entirely. Shiloh's cure promised to heal consumption, croup, whooping cough, and bronchitis. It sold for 10 cents or $1. It was sold on a guarantee. A companion product, Shiloh's Catarrh Remedy, advertised itself as a positive cure for diphtheria and canker mouth. There was no federal agency watching. There were no clinical trials. There were no consequences for false claims. It was reported that such remedies flooded rural markets across the American South. Physicians were scarce in Calcasieu Parish. Desperation filled the gap. A bottle with a promise was better than nothing. At least that was the hope. The oysters were real. The cure was not. Cleveland took office in March 1885. He disappointed reformers early. He filled many of those 370 offices with Democrats. Civil service reform would wait. The patent medicine industry kept booming. Shiloh's cure sold for decades. Real regulation wouldn't come until 1906. W.A. Knapp kept his shelves stocked in the meantime. Dr. Flynn's arrival in